Have you ever had to work with that person who is, to put it nicely, uncooperative? Don't you wish they would just change? Well, sadly, they probably won't change. So what do we do? What's one thing we can do to create change? How about changing the way we talk to ourselves? We swear too much. Ever hit your thumb with a hammer? That's a pretty bad word. But there are 3 words we all say that are even worse. For the sake of education, I'm going to drop some bombs. When we're having one of those terrible days, nothing's going right, everything's melting down at our feet, the 3 terrible cuss words that come out of our mouth are can't, won't, and don't. Dun, dun, dun. I consider can't, won't, and don't the most vile, the most disgusting of cuss words because they close that door. They shoot us down before we even have a chance. The second you catch yourself saying or thinking one of those terrible cuss words, I want you to give the loudest Hi-Yah that you possibly can. So the Hi-Yah, it's loud, it's fun, it's ridiculous. It's not the whole point. It's just a symbol for how we change our language and change our life. See, I had this crazy friend who recently went on a road trip to Iowa. And I say crazy because he honestly thought driving 2,000 miles with 3 teenagers would be a good idea. The whole point of the trip was to spend time with his aging father, Mr. Brown. On their final day at the nursing home, he asked his dad to one last lunch. And his dad said, "No, I can't do that. I won't have lunch with you." And he said, "But Dad, it's just one last trip. It's our last day here." Mr. Brown says, "No, the guy said the seat on my hover-round. It's wearing out, too much up and down. I might break it. I won't go to lunch with you." My friend said, "I'm 48 years old, and I know this is just Dad's can't do, won't work type attitude. But to me, it still feels like I'm not good enough." Can you imagine what it would be like to spend 48 years in an environment like that? Well, maybe you already know. When we work with people who have that kind of attitude, or when we have it ourselves, doesn't it just deflate you? On the whole opposite side of the can-do spectrum is a farmer from my hometown named Bob Durham. Bob's awesome. He's the king of can-do. Anytime you give him an idea, he has the same sort of reaction. "Well, sure. How could we make that work?" One day we were on a field trip and Bob was driving the bus. It had started to snow outside and accumulated into a few inches of fresh, pristine powder. Hey, and what do kids want to do when they see snow? "Let's go sledding!" So we asked Bob, "Can we go sledding? Can we go? Can we go?" And his typical reaction, "Well, sure. How can we make that work?" Bob pulled the bus over to Les Schwab's, bought 20 of those huge truck tire inner tubes. Then he took the airlines off of the bus brakes, turned that into an air compressor, and inflated all 20 of those inner tubes. And every kid got to sail down the slopes that day because Bob's first reaction was, "Well, sure, how can we make this work?" For some of those kids, that was the very first time they had seen an adult that didn't say, "Be quiet, I'm busy, I don't have time for you." Now, if Mr. Brown and Bob Durham were up here on stage, which one would you want to be? I believe the people who are leaders and the people who actually can create options and ideas during times of change, they're the Bob Durhams of this world. Your work has plenty of change going on. What it needs is people who can think creatively during that time of change. Dr. Wayne Dyer, the author of 40 books, he believes You can't always control what goes on outside, but you can always control what goes on inside. I deputize you to make a difference. Next time you catch yourself saying or thinking one of those 3 words that hold your team down, stop that in its tracks with a mighty Hi-Yah!